So next we have Tobias Dengel, who is CEO of Willow Tree Apps. Willow Tree actually built our app. We have two apps that you've probably seen, flyers and other things. One is our check-in app, which is new for this conference. Our long-standing app, our BIA Kelsey app, is always there to read our blog content, and during conferences you can see the schedule, other things like that. Willow Tree built that for us. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and Willow Tree.
Well, I'll just focus on Willow Tree, if that's okay. We're an app developer and a mobile site developer. So if you need apps built or if you need mobile sites built, that's what we do.
Nice.
It's pretty straightforward.
Any particular apps or verticals or functionality that you kind of shine, where you shine?
We're
or just
pretty broad-based, given in my long relationship with you guys in this space. We've done a lot in the local space, directory space, et cetera. We're particularly proud of our Baby Center app, iPad app, that got featured by Steve Jobs in the launch of the iPad 2.
It's a good plug.
So that was a lot of fun, but that's sold under the Baby Center brand. It's their app, but we built it for them.
So one of the reasons I like talking to you is that 90% of the mobile discussions I get in, it's always about mobile's great, look at these charts, mobile's great. But then the conversation ends with, begging the question of, okay, now how? What do I do next if I'm going to get into mobile? You work with a lot of different publishers that are building apps, so you're in a good perspective to see mistakes that are made, best practices. What is your kind of recommendation for some of the questions that people need to ask themselves before they jump into mobile? Often there are mistakes made that the CEO wakes up one day and decides they need an iPhone app.
Right.
Maybe that's the right decision, maybe not. But what are the right questions?
Well, so the first thing, let's do a little platform survey here. How many people have BlackBerries in this audience? There's a lot of hands. I think there's actually more BlackBerries because I've been seeing them out there. I would encourage you to do yourself a favor, slide those BlackBerries under your seats, and then walk down to the Apple store that's 3 blocks away and get an iPhone, or you can also get an Android, because the main thing is you have to start using these apps and mobile sites. And really, I don't want to get into a platform discussion. I don't want to bash BlackBerry. But what I'm saying is all the growth right now is in the iPhone and Android. That's where the apps are. That's where the volume is. You have to get your senior executives using these devices so that they can make decisions on how they're going to allocate resources.
Then the light bulbs can go off once they're using
it. So that's that's kind of the highest level thought that we've got. The second is you have to ruthlessly be focused on the user. Yesterday in the keynote address, we saw Google and Craigslist were up there because they're so, even to this day, they've never changed from their original mission to provide information for the user. And in mobile, it's even more important than on the web. And I think the mistake most people make is they say, I've got all this web stuff, I want to put it on mobile. Really what you have to do is consider mobile a completely separate medium. Start with that and start thinking about what are users going to want. I'll give you a little example. I was at AOL in the late 90s, working with AOL Sports, and everyone went to AOL Sports to get scores. So what we did is we put the scores 4 clicks back from the main page of sports so that we could drive up page views and usage, et cetera. And even to this day, if you look at ESPN, it's not like they have all, they might have some scores there, but you have to drill down a little. On mobile, ESPN Score Center, 1 click, you put your favorite teams in, 1 time, you get all your scores. Maybe they get 1 ad unit. Now, do they make a lot less money per user doing that? Yes, but they probably get a lot more uses per day, and they've protected a flank. Because if they hadn't done that, someone else would have done a scoring app that with 1 click you can get your scores.
Good point. And the app ecosystem calls for kind of that single track functionality, one app that's about getting a score. But I also like your point about building from the ground up for the form factor. And I think that too often, what I like to call mobile 1.0, it's simply taking an IYP, an online site, something like that, and putting it on a smaller screen. And if you look at the most successful apps out there, the most downloaded in the App Store, and they make public what those are, most of them are built from the ground up. It's the common factor for mobile. And the litmus test for me is, would this app work on a PC? And most of the cases, the answer is no. Angry Birds, Shazam, all of these kind of apps or products that utilize, the camera, the accelerometer, the unique factors of the device and the way people are using it.
Yeah. I mean, our belief is, and it may sound crazy today, but our belief is this transition to mobile is going to be more disruptive than the transition 15 years ago, that started 15 years ago from traditional media to the web.
Sure.
And the reason is that mobile is so much more complicated. So here, I just have a quick list. I'm going to run through. I'm going to do posts on the site that everyone will have this. So, but here are the attributes of mobile that don't exist on a desktop website. It's always with you. It's always on. It knows your location. It knows which direction you're pointing the phone. It's got an accelerometer so it can see how you're moving the phone. It's got a camera that you can use not only for images but video. You can get perfect information wherever you are. So the Amazon scan tag, you can be in a store. You can say, hey, it's $3.99.
Yep.
Click on it or scan it. You find out on Amazon it's $2.99.
I use the barcode scanners whenever anyone comes over to my house with a bottle of wine, and I can tell them how cheap they are.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or you can check your Facebook likes or your Yelp reviews, whatever. Another huge thing that I don't think people appreciate is touch. A lot of these apps would not work if it weren't for touch.
Yep.
Then there's users are very limited in their time, so they only surf one or two screens, so it becomes a winner-take-all environment, even more than the web was. There's this whole gaming orientation. NFC, if you don't know that acronym, you will soon.
Yep.
Near-field communications within
Payments.
Payments, but also information. Consumer packaged goods are going to be able to put RFID chips that you can scan. You can get information. You can get coupons. You can get specials. And then there's some complications with the multiple browsers, limited bandwidth. So all that means is when you look at apps that are really successful, they've taken 3 or 4 at least of those attributes and included them in their app or their mobile site. Can be either one. And that's what has allowed them to create something that's really innovative and interesting. And even stuff like Foursquare, whatever, you go through that list, they've done 3 or 4 of those things. Yep. Scavenger, they all include multiple pieces.
You're right. Now, organizationally speaking, does that mean, and are you seeing that companies that have legacy products in other media, whether they be print, broadcast, or online, somewhat handicapped by the DNA of those other products, whereas companies starting mobile only have a leg up just in terms of the way they see the world and the way that they're developing and coming up with philosophies of strategy and product development?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar to what happened in the mid to late 90s, where the traditional media companies were just not able to reorganize themselves quickly enough. And I think a lot of these web companies that popped up that are still leading in their space right now might be really surprised by mobile, because now they're not able to, my suggestion would be in your organization, whoever has the word, there should be someone with the word mobile in their title, and that person should be on equal footing with the person who has interactive in their title. It shouldn't be someone who's way below, who's just taking the website, making it a little mobile and moving on. It's got to be a focus.
Mm-hmm. And my question wasn't at all to downplay traditional media companies, but just to recognize the challenge in kind of having that inertia, organizational inertia.
Well, I think it's a second bite at the apple, so to speak. A lot of traditional media companies lost a lot of audience in the last 10, 15 years that they've got the potential now to regain. And they've got a unique advantage because they can cross-promote things like apps that someone starting out doesn't have.
Now, that's a good point. Also, to counter your point earlier that this shift from online to mobile will be greater than the shift from print or traditional media to online, a counter-argument, which I'm not sure I'm behind, but devil's advocate position, is that a lot of companies that already went through that transition don't want to make the same mistake twice. Do you think that's true at all?
I hope so. But history, the near-term history of the last 12 months hasn't borne that out.
Okay.
I mean, you've got Foursquare, Gowalla, Scavenger.
Sure.
You've got...
They're all mobile only.
Living Social. You've got Groupon.
That
aren't necessarily mobile only, but mobile is a
companies.
Huge component, and they're new companies. But there are counterexamples. I mean, ESPN, I think, is a very good example of someone who's taken mobile very aggressively from day one.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. And again, none of this is to down or put down traditional media at all, but really to recognize the challenge in kind of getting things to change and thinking differently. So let's talk about, we went into a little bit earlier, platform choice. We don't want to get into a whole kind of platform war discussion. But in terms of where you're placing your chips when you come out with a mobile product, not only looking at market share now, but where it's going. And on that respect, you cannot ignore Android. I mean, look at this. This is mobile OS share in the U.S. These are ComScore data. Look at that green line.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened in literally the last 6 or 12 months. 12 months ago, we were building no Android apps. Now it's now, one for one.
Right there, the advantages are clear. What are the disadvantages of Android? I mean, there's the platform fragmentation. There's sometimes the versioning, and when you're, it takes a lot of kind of development muscle to keep up with it.
A big piece of it, and Android, which is surprising given that it's a Google initiative, their search, Apple's iTunes Store search is horrible.
Oh, yeah.
And Android's has taken it to a new level of
I have a theory about that. So the marketplace, you're right. It's a completely horrible experience to find what you're looking for. And I think that they're secretly trying to kind of kill this app environment because they want the world to be more browser-based. Because browsers are based on search being the front door, and that's where they make all their money. Apple's going for this app-centric universe for clear reasons. So Google's attempts at creating an app store are kind of half-hearted. I mean, I don't know if that's it, but that's one of my theories.
I hope that's right.
Because their engineers can do better.
Yes, you would hope. In terms of the whole mobile web versus app discussion, I mean, what's interesting to me there is I think a word vocabulary has really killed us. The term mobile optimization, I think, put us in a really bad place because it implies that you're taking a website and you're messing with it, and now it's mobile.
Yeah.
And really, it needs to be a completely different, from scratch initiative. And then in that world, it can be, these days mobile apps can do almost anything an app can do, or a web app can do, or a website, whatever, a mobile site can do anything a native app can do, almost anything.
Almost anything.
Your only differences really there's some slight speed differences, but it's the app store, so there's a discoverability issue.
Right. It's a Wild West mobile web. It's not user-friendly yet. There's not enough content there, and people are just disoriented.
And so it really depends on your business. If you're in a business where you get a lot of searches from Google, you're going to need a mobile website because Google is going to give extra promotion to sites that are mobile optimized. In a year or two, you're only going to get mobile optimized site if you search on a mobile browser on Google. And if you're getting search results, you need a mobile site, and that should be your first piece of your strategy. If you're a destination site and you can cross-promote, you're probably better off starting with a native app because you can get an installed base, you can keep pushing it. It's easy. People are used to clicking it once, even though they can do the same thing with a mobile website. They just don't know that.
Yeah, and I think a theme there also is cross-promotion between all of your properties, whether you're already in traditional media, cross-promotion there, and then when you get into mobile, between these different platforms, you're creating seed activity amongst them.
Yeah.
So we're out of time, and we probably created more questions than we answered. But this is an ongoing debate that I, encourage you to pay attention to. Where these platforms are going, apps versus mobile web, it has a lot to do with market share, reaching the most amount of users, and not only that, where your users are, what devices they're carrying, and not just statically right now, but back to this Android chart, where it's going. Where do we not
get to our comic?
Oh yeah, actually we'll end on that.
We'll just leave that up. This is kind of where we are today. All right.
So you guys can read this as the next panel comes up. So thank you, Tobias. Please join me in thanking Tobias.